Let's consider graphing a function using a graphing calculator. This is the TI-83 plus, the 84 plus are similar. If I want to graph a function, for example, something y equals, I would go to the y equals screen. Notice that my first equation here is empty, y sub 1. So I'm going to enter a function, and as I begin to enter that function, you'll notice that the equal sign darken in. So I'm going to type in a function previously looked at. So this is 2x cubed minus 33x squared plus 108x plus 10, and you'll want to make sure that you've entered that function correctly. So 2x cubed minus 33x squared plus 108x plus 10. Now if I just graph this function, and I believe my window is set at just a standard screen of a negative 10 to positive 10, we don't see very much. Let me just point out here that my domain and my range, my x values, the domain is set from negative 10 to 10 with the little tick marks at 1. The range is set at negative 10 to 10 with the tick marks at 1. And you see that when I graph that function by clicking that graph button, I don't really see a lot. So this function here is a little bit large. The plus 188 8x minus 33x kind of indicates to me that it's going to have some very large numbers. That's a little bit difficult to graph, so let me sort of walk through what might happen in my mind if I were trying to think about graphing this. My first option would be to go to the table set, and then I would choose, let's do a table set from, let's say, negative 10, and let's just do a delta table at 1. And then now if I go to my table by hitting second graph, the little second and graph button, you'll see that I get y values. So when x is negative 10, y is negative 6,770. So you get some values there. And I would just run through and see what my values are looking like. There's negatives. It looks like it goes up to 42 at 4, and then it's negative, and I'm going on up. And then as I go up to maybe 15 here, okay, so we're getting up, when I get to x is equal to 16, it's at somewhere close to 1500. So looking at those values now, I'm going to go back and reset my domain. And I think the negative 8 will be okay to do this. So we'll do negative 8, and then I'll just go ahead and go up to the x max at 15. And then we can set this at 2, the tick marks at 2, and then let's do negative 4,000 up to my y max of 4,000. So my range here is going to be from negative 4,000 to 4,000, and let's set our y scale at 100 so that our tick marks show up every 100. Now if I hit graph, you'll notice that I get, looks like a pretty good graph. And you may find that you have to play with this a little bit. You see that it looks like maybe I didn't go far enough out here with my domain. So let's go back and change my x max to maybe 25 so that I get a little bit better picture of my graph. And now if I graph it, you'll begin to see that yes, okay. And if I trace this, a couple of ways I can trace it. I can kind of just, sort of take my finger, if you would, and run down it, and you can see here it looks like that I have a maximum right in there somewhere, a minimum right in there, and then it increases without bound. You can use this trace button to trace along. So if I move my cursor to the left, you notice it goes to the left. If I move it to the right, you can also hit this trace button right here, and for example, maybe if I want to know the value at x is equal to negative 4, I simply enter negative 4 and then hit enter, and it gives me that value, and then I can trace back as I move across here using those left-right buttons. Now, in terms of looking at relative extrema, one of the things that you may want to do is, because this is such a large function here in terms of its range, I would hit this zoom button, and when I click this zoom button, it gives me an option for a zoom in, a zoom out, or a zoom box. I'm going to opt in this case to do the zoom box, You could choose to do the zoom in or zoom out, but I'm going to choose the zoom box and hit enter. And then when I put my little cursor, you'll see here I can move the cursor pad to the left, to the right. Well, what I'm just going to try to do is to kind of box in this inner. So I'm going to put my cursor, that little plus sign's a little bit to the left, and then I'm going to hit enter and then move it down so that I kind of box in what I want. I'm moving it down. Now I'm going to move to the right, and I'm just going to scroll over until I get this little area so that I have clearly what looks like my relative extrema, my relative maximum and relative minimum. And now I can hit enter, and you'll see that we have zoomed in on this particular little area that shows my relative min and max. And then if I trace, notice what happens. I can see here that it looks like my maximum, that relative maximum, is right in there. Maybe at x is equal to 2, somewhere around 109 was the y value. And then if I scroll over here, it looks like that I have a minimum, a relative minimum somewhere between, looks like maybe 9 perhaps at that little point right there. So that's an idea of how to use your graphing calculator to help you examine the graph, get the broader picture. And if I just go back, I think we can do a zoom previous. If you scroll over to memory and then do a zoom previous, that'll take you back to that original screen where you can see the function in its entirety and get a general picture of what that function looks like.